Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late, but it's moaning, Saturday moaning to you and you and you and you and you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are we all this Saturday morn? It's a beautiful sunny day here. Apparently a life-threatening hurricane is about to hit Scotland this morning. Anyone up in Scotland due for this northeasterly? Is it Hurricane Foley or something strange? Good morning, everyone. Morning, Richard Kavanagh. Come on, the British and Irish Lions rugby team and the England cricket team today. Chin chin, up the old hatch, down the hatch, in the meadows, up the whoop whoop, and all that sort of stuff. Tally ho, all that sort of shit. We're going to talk about Prince Andrew actually today too. I've got a photograph of him where he looks sort of like incredibly stupid and dim. Anyway, good morning, everyone. Let me just take a sip of this glorious cup of tea. How are we all? It's been an odd week. Always is these days, isn't it? 2025. What a year. Personally, globally, mentally, emotionally, everything. Morning, everyone. Morning, Arsenal. I'm just recovering from the fact that Son, a Korean footballer, is leaving Tottenham, which is a bit depressing because he's about the only footballer player for Tottenham that I know scores goals. Morning, Anne H. Just caught the Insta Live and left with the image of Nadia leaving a jellyfish in the toilet. Yes, we're going to be talking about jellyfishes. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about nuclear submarines. Donald Trump has upped the ante with a Truth Social post. We have a narcissistic nutcase in the White House posting on Truth Social. And by all accounts, allegedly, according to intelligence services, we have a former president of Russia off his tits, just completely annihilated drunk half the time, posting mad shit. And so those two right now are playing war games, essentially, across social media. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump's envoy to the Middle East's trip to the bait stations, as we call them, run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Let's have a look at the spin and the propaganda that has been spun out of that trip, trying to tell us all that it's just brilliant, America's great, and Israel's just the most moral country in the world. We are going to be talking about the upset that some of the Israeli hostage families are feeling about Keir Starmer's announcement of a potential Palestinian state. The rights and wrongs of that. Gilly Maxwell, she's staying in a Travelodge. It looks like a Travelodge. I've looked at the footage. I've got a CNN report showing the new prison, the low security prison that Gilly Maxwell has been moved to for white collar crime. It looks like a Travelodge. We're going to be talking about US concern over free speech. Are you worried about free speech? This is the idea that civil servants have been monitoring social media posts about migrant hotels. This is a curious one. We've been very outspoken about how we don't think all the problems are migrant problems. And if you're going to protest about keeping our children safe, you should protest against all criminals, not just migrant criminals. But then does the government overstep the mark by going online and having civil servants monitor everyone's content? Jellyfish, jellyfish, jellyfish everywhere. The UK is surrounded by jellyfish, apparently. They're all just coming in faster and faster. So I'm going to walk you through some of the jellyfish that you could come across if you go in British seas. Annoying tourists, Japanese walking, Mick Jagger getting married again, having babies again, and all that kind of stuff. Signing people off sick. Should you be able to be off sick for depression and anxiety? And someone at the annual Kinky get-together swing-a-thon has had a business idea, and I want to run it past you. So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about today. So let me start with, should we start with the big man himself? Should we start with the Donald? The Donald's been up all night. I like the word nuclear. It's a brand new word. It's not an old word like grocery. Grocery, what a strange word. I like nuclear. Anyway, there's a Sky report. Well, actually, Sky report on what exactly has happened. Here you go, guys. Trump on nuclear submarine. We're going to protect our people, he said. I'm walking off. It's not Air Force One, or something, whatever.
Well, we had to do that. We just have to be careful. And a threat was made, and we didn't think it was appropriate, so I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people. A threat was made by a former president of Russia, and we're going to protect our people.
I don't really know if a threat was made against his people. These are the headlines. All of the major papers are running with these. Trump moves nuclear submarines after Russia's menacing tweet. I've gone on to Medvedev's Twitter account because we like to do the social media graft in the background that you don't have to do. You might, after this, have thought, oh, let me go to X and see what old Medvedev was rambling on about in his vodka-infused madness. But he got his last 3 tweets. Here they are. So you've got at the bottom, BRICS is gaining authority. That's the unity of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and I don't know what S stands for. Trump announced that an additional 10% tariff would be imposed on any country that supports the sort of alternate to NATO, if you like. So we're doing everything right. Then he said Trump issued a theatrical ultimatum to the Kremlin. The world shuddered, expecting consequences. Belligerent Europe was disappointed. Russia didn't care. And then his most recent one 4 days ago from Medvedev, this former president of the US, of Russia, sorry, was Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia, 50 days or 10. He should remember 2 things. Russia isn't Israel or Iran, and each new ultimatum is a threat and step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. So, yes, belligerent. Yes, hostile. Yes, he says war. But does it merit moving nuclear submarines? We don't know whether, do we know where they've been moved to? No one said. Oh, yes, thank you. South Africa. Why don't they have SA? Of course, Donald Trump had to post on Truth Social. Can you get the fate of the world rests in these people's hands? Medvedev is kind of considered to be Putin's Rottweiler. And as I say, the rumor has it that he's known as something of a kind of heavy drinking, social media clicking nutter. This is what Donald said on Truth Social, based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. I've ordered 2, not 1, not 3, but 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions, just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are important and can lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Now, when I first saw this last night, what does anyone else think? I thought, fucking hell, the Epstein files must be really close to telling us something. Who thinks that Trump would be willing to sacrifice global safety to avoid some whistleblower or clip somewhere attached to the Epstein scandal coming out? Who thinks he's willing to escalate things to that level? We can't surely be in the hands of that level of psychopathy and narcissism and hubris and all the rest of it. Do you think? You're right, Glass Shield. BRICS is this currency. I mean, what's happening in the world without us knowing? And it's fair dues. Why not? The dollar and America controls the IMF and most of the economies of the world. And Russia, Brazil, South Africa, India, China are trying to kind of gradually wean the world off its dollar dependency. And when that happens, then you will really see America start its sort of control start to wobble. We are dealing with the rise and fall of empires. But there's a really interesting book coming out, which I've actually made a note of here. I don't normally write at the front of something like this, talk about books. But I want to talk about this one because there's a review of it. What's the name of the book? The problem was, what was the name of the bloody book? Let me go right to the end to find the book. Goliath's Curse. It's a new book called Goliath's Curse by Luke Kemp, published on the 31st of July. But it's a book about the end of empire. And he's talking about the fact that end of civilization usually happens, in a more sort of regional way. You get sort of the end of the Turkish, the Ottoman, the Chinese. Do you know what I mean? But he's talking about the fact that actually, because we're all so interconnected, we're all going down. Basically, what he's saying is when it happens, and it's happening, it's going to be worse than ever. It's going to be a great big internal explosion. And so last night I was thinking, oh, mate, maybe he's upped and ratcheted up the rhetoric and he's moving submarines around now because he was, something shows him with his pants down. So all the papers are running with this. Telegraph, Trump deploys nuclear submarines to Russia. US president makes order in response to threats from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Here are images of some nuclear subs in the USS Kentucky. It's interesting, isn't it? By all accounts, we have between America, France, and Britain. We don't know where Israel aims its nuclear weapons. If the Samson directive or the Samson policy is true, I think Israel's nukes probably point at every major city in the world. It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to have some transparency on where all of Israel's nukes are pointing. I think we'd be quite slightly perturbed by the fact there's probably one aimed at London, but the nuke probably has a Russian logo on it, so they can blame it on someone else. So this is, there's no two ways about it. This is big news, but many people are saying, it's big moves, but it may lead to nothing. All, lots and lots of hot air, but very little sort of actual delivery. It does kind of fly in the face of what Caroline Levitt last night or yesterday made an appeal for, which is once again Donald Trump to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. But they're not subtle about this. Look at this.
Time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The president has now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office. It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Keep them off. Sorry. No. They go through my computer. Are they closed? Yeah. Is the audio okay, guys? Is the audio okay? Just triple checking. The word nuclear before bedtime is the stuff of nightmares, says Victoria Moore. Just checking it out. So once again, yep, no, which one? Yes, what? Am I here? Can you hear me? Audio good, thank you. Weird, isn't it? Because he's obsessed with statistics. He's had to break that down into he's brokered a peace deal once a month. Mate, you haven't. These things have just kind of burnt out, or you've just become a bully, or you've just it's like, this whole idea of tariffs and trade wars. He's not doing it for the better good of America. He's just a bully. He's just a great big orange bully. Okay, so moving on. Haaretz, Israel threatens to halt aid drops if Gaza destruction is revealed to the world. So that's a hangover from elsewhere. Here we have images of Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's Middle Eastern envoy, formerly, I believe, a real estate manager with zero experience in global politics or diplomatic, efforts. He headed off to the Gaza aid stations alongside Ambassador Mike Huckabee, a more repellent man I have not had the misfortune of watching anywhere. So Ambassador Mike Huckabee posted on X yesterday, this morning I joined Peace Mission's Steve Witkoff for a visit to Gaza to learn the truth about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation updates and sites. We received briefings from the IDF. Well, that's reliable, isn't it? If you've received a briefing from the IDF, you can believe nothing. And spoke to folks on the ground. Oh my God, he's like Mike Huckabee, like his name. He's just kind of, hey guys, I'm just on the ground talking to folks, just talking to the folks about the things going down. It's not a fucking rodeo, you Burke. GHF delivers more than 1 million meals a day, an incredible feat. Yeah, man. Whoa. Slap that horse and crack that whip. Look, Huckabee, 1 million meals a day. How many did you say? We've delivered 1 million meals a day. 1 million meals a day. An incredible feat. No one can verify that. No one can assess that. There were, apparently, if we're to believe the American statistics, about 2.1 million Gazans. I believe we've lost 400,000, so there are now 1.7 million. So that still means that there's 500,000 people not receiving anything. Then spread that out across the population, and you've got everyone not receiving a full meal a day. So even by his own metrics, it doesn't stack up. Here's a shot of Mike Huckabee is the Burke with the hat. Looks like a dustbin on his head, with a GoPro at the front of it. He's the guy sort of left at the table. Then you've got Steve Witkoff, and there they are, being informed reliably by the IDF at a table, at a trestle table, a nice trestle table, a beacon of sort of, sobriety and serenity and not savagery or anything like that, shielded from the gunfire. There he is, a nice, really strategic photograph there. Huckabee in the background. 100 million meals delivered. This is like a poster for McDonald's, isn't it? We've served up 10 million burgers in a month. This is just American shit. We've got them again there. But this is interesting. Mike Huckabee yesterday. So this is Mike Huckabee. So you got Witkoff, who's the Middle Eastern envoy. Huckabee is the Israeli ambassador to the US, or the US ambassador to Israel. He actually posted on X, Gazans love Trump, and then rapidly deleted it a minute later. Can you actually believe that? He posted that Gazans love Trump. He even, I think, said at one point, get this, that Gazans affectionately refer to the one remaining tower block in Rafah as Trump Tower. Not surprisingly, even he, who refuses to acknowledge the West Bank, refuses to acknowledge the Gazans or the and I notice also they don't refer to Palestinians. There's a new shift in how they're talking about people from Gaza or people from the West Bank. They don't talk about them as Palestinians. Mick Huckabee, along with Steve Witkoff, gained rare access to Gaza on Friday. Rare because the IDF lets no one anywhere. Following his visit to an aid site in Rafah, he claimed that Palestinians fondly refer to a 6-story building, one of a few that remain in the ruinous southern city, as Trump Tower. The tweet, which was online for less than a minute, added, "They love real Donald Trump and believe he is helping." Can you believe that? Can you actually, Adam and Eve? Oh, sorry, I've quoted the Bible. Mike Huckabee, also another post here, went into Gaza today and observed humanitarian food program. Hamas hates the Gazan Humanitarian Foundation because it gets food to people without it being looted by Hamas. Over 100 meals served in 2 months. Oh my God, Donald Trump's envoy. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if, Donald Trump, did anyone see Donald Trump when he was in Scotland promoting his golf course and sort of oiling and lubing up his gimp in the form of Keir Starmer sat there like this going, "Leave me alone, Donald, please stop rubbing my knee, Donald." I wouldn't be at all surprised. Donald got sort of distracted by the fences, didn't he? He got distracted by those fences. And then he started to say things like, we need to create walk-ins. They're going to create a fucking drive-through GHF, aren't they? I can see it. They're so out of touch. They so think this is like, a sort of, a defunct state in America. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they created a drive-through GHF. GHF, serving 100 million meals every month. Drive-through. In other news, families criticize Starmer and say hostages will rot in Hamas dungeons. Okay, this is a moment for you guys. What do you think about this? What do you think about the upset of, I forget the name of the hostage, but the hostage, British Israeli hostage, went in to meet Starmer and tell him that she thought it was reprehensible, that recognizing a Palestinian state is rewarding Hamas. I think the problem I have with this, it's not that, obviously any family of the hostages, it's a distressing time still. But the problem is, I think they're being encouraged to now, obviously not historically, but now aim their ire and their upset at the wrong target, because there've been many occasions where all of the hostages could have been handed over. And really, it is incumbent, I think, on Netanyahu and Israel, right, to agree to a total withdrawal from Gaza. I mean, the fact of the matter is, what's happened in this debate is the whole two-state solution. This is where we are at in terms of an irresolvable crisis. The two-state solution prior to even this whole kind of 2-year genocide was always something that even the Israelis had to pay lip service to. They had to almost, in order to kind of have leverage with the world, they needed to kind of say, yeah, okay, well, in principle, and they were forever obfuscating and filibustering and not allowing it to happen. But now we have a situation where the vast majority of people in Israel don't believe Emily Thornberry's assessment that I believe 80% of all Israelis want it all to end. 43% in the last poll on Haaretz, the Israeli publication, said something like 43%. I can't remember the biblical reference, but they sign up to. I know someone tried to correct me yesterday saying they go from the Torah. I don't know what the difference between the Torah and the Bible is, but all I know is they keep quoting the fucking Bible. So, you know, they keep referring to the biblical reference of removing and ethnically cleansing everyone in the region. And 60% believe all Palestinians should be removed. So we are not dealing with a society that is favorably positioned in any way, shape or form towards the Palestinians. And so, you know, I think whilst, yes, if you're a family of a hostage and you've heard that there's a recognition of Palestine happening, you're probably going to feel, wow, hang on a minute, why is it happening at this point? But I think you need to aim your ire at Netanyahu and his government and Israeli foreign policy. There have been many opportunities to come out of this, get out of this, ceasefire deals involving the release of all. The Torah is the Old Testament. That'll be why there's crossover. There was a protest in Tel Aviv the night before yesterday with Israelis and Palestinians together. Yeah, it's not to say that there isn't, of course, there are some, but there aren't enough. There are some, but there aren't enough. Are they hostages or Netanyahu's sacrifice, says Stormbreaker? He doesn't care about them. He doesn't care about them. They've been used as pawns. They've been as useful to Israel as they have been to Hamas. And I think me and Nadia were saying yesterday, in a weird way, I think one of the few options, if I was in any way running the situation there and had advice to Hamas, it would be release all the hostages just to somehow occupy a more superior moral higher ground. You know, I would argue, you know, hand them back, remove that essentially diplomatic lie, just remove it from the equation now, because there's little to be gained, I think, from holding on to them personally, I think. But yeah, families criticizing Starmer say, and I sometimes just worry that many of the families, some of the families, or certainly the hostage that was appealing to Starmer, on the one hand, she's right, because the West has been slovenly and slow in doing anything. And I would argue that if the West had been more engaged in recognizing a Palestinian state way, way, way before October the 7th, we wouldn't have had October the 7th. But of course, more and more information is coming out of Israel that October the 7th, there are many question marks, only question marks. We're not saying definitively, but there are many question marks. There have been Knesset hearings with members of the IDF, former members of the IDF who normally man and guard the border. There's much more information or suggestion coming out now that for whatever reasons, the IDF and Israel went slow on October the 7th. Reduced forces on the border. So, you know, there are so many kind of smoking gun situations here. There's always been resistance and opposition from Hamas and what Israel and our country would call terrorists in Gaza. There's always been the attempt, the firing of rockets, etc. To what extent, we need to ask ourselves, was October the 7th in a tacit fashion potentially allowed to happen? And I think that conversation, which if you go to Tucker Carlson's podcast, John Mearsheimer discusses. If you look at the footage that is knocking about on Instagram in the Knesset, where former IDF soldiers say, we were told not to man our points, we were told to stand down, we weren't guarding at the right times. You know, I feel the hostage families haven't been told the full story by their governments. So there we go, yeah. In other news, Gilly Maxwell quietly moved to minimum security prison. I've got a CNN report here that kind of states the blindingly obvious. Sometimes you sort of think, I think she says, our insider says that she's been moved either because it was too dangerous for her or because she's not so much of a threat. I mean, of course it's going to be either one of those. But of course, I think we also know that she's probably been moved as a softening up. A sort of suggestion to her, you know, you play ball with us and give us a list of names as long as you're armed that doesn't include Trump, and maybe you'll be let go. But anyway, here's a CNN report.
Has happened for Ghislaine Maxwell in the federal prison system, that she was in Florida in a Tallahassee low security prison. That's the type of prison that can house violent offenders. It's the type of prison with a double fence around the perimeter, like you would expect to see in photos of a prison. That sort of prison could have become a place that may be unsafe for her potentially, or that would not be the most comfortable place for her in the federal prison system. That's according to a prison consultant I talked to just a few minutes ago, who is not working for her directly, but has a very good understanding of the system. Now she's in a federal prison in Bryan, Texas, outside of Austin. That's a minimal security camp. A camp is a place that doesn't have that sort of double protective fence around it. It has nonviolent white-collar offenders. She would also be considered that. The type of offenders who you may recognize their names. People like Jen Shaw, who was on the TV show Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Also Elizabeth Holmes, formerly of the blood testing company Theranos. So now Ghislaine Maxwell would be around women who are much lower risk, women who are unlikely to be violent because they do not have a history of violence around them. They would not be gang members, for instance, but also it does create a situation where it's much more comfortable for her. And a reminder, she's not that far into serving this sentence, that she has a 20-year sentence.
You know, when they say white collar crime, I mean, she was done for sex trafficking. Is she not? I mean, and many claim that. I mean, I know she wasn't charged for necessarily the actual acts, sex acts, but I think some claim there's very much, isn't there evidence that she was involved greatly? In other sort of news that America sort of bleeding into the UK, US, what do you think of this, guys? US greatly concerned about free speech in Britain. Trump administration, kind of bit of overreach here, but this is the whole MAGA, far right, Nigel Farage, two-tier policing, all this bollocks. US greatly concerned about free speech in Britain. Trump admin officials raised concerns over the monitoring of social media posts about asylum hotels. Now, the reason I think this is a bit more complicated than one would initially think, this is the Daily Telegraph, not surprisingly, exposed a secretive civil service Whitehall unit that's been spying on critics of migrant hotels. Last week, it was revealed that civil servants monitored social media posts about asylum hotels and two-tier policing during the Southport riots last year. I think you'll remember there was the woman, was there the housewife who was she in prison for 17 months or something for something she posted, racial hatred she posted on Facebook. Maybe she was in prison for longer. A spokesman for the US State Department said Washington was monitoring the issue closely and with concern. It comes as US officials and congressmen raised wider concerns over free speech, as well as the regulation of social media, warning that the Online Safety Act risks a chilling impact on real political speech. On Friday, Elon Musk's X also accused the Labour government of censorship over new rules on age verification for tech platforms. Now, I don't agree with, obviously, what happened in the Southport riots, and I agree that there's huge misinformation. But isn't the danger here that, albeit that these are political opinions or opinions that one doesn't like, that I find abhorrent, the idea of kind of fanning the flames of violence and wrongly suggesting migrants have done this, that, and the other, and only focusing on migrants as the problem, and misinformation, you know, claiming that someone is of this ethnicity when they're not. That also runs the risk of clamping down on any sort of political expression or frustration felt on the other side of the political spectrum, doesn't it? So you can't, I mean, I'm always mindful that it's all, you know, we can all get really, rightly so, furious about the prescription of Palestine Action as a terrorist group. But then something like this, you sort of think, well, should they be monitoring and looking at anything? Oxidus Magicus, the Online Safety Act has nothing to do with children. It is aimed at controlling dissent. Really? I mean, I suppose this one, I know James O'Brien was talking about this last week. You know, the idea of, is this about kids? Obviously, the byproduct is that you protect children from unwanted and, you know, stuff that you don't want them to see. But are we then going to stop? And I've always had this concern about if you really overtly control what, say, 16-year-olds see. When you're 40, I mean, okay, 14, 15, 16, they're about to get the vote, 16-year-olds, aren't they, in England and Wales? You're forming your political opinions at a very young age. This is, I mean, I did politics O-level, and I was, what would you be when you did your O-levels? 15, 16, and I got fired up at that point. if I get fired up, so I can see how you could be impressionable with the wrong information, but how do you manage that? How do you police that? How do you control that? If you're trying to remove extremism, I suppose the argument is extremism. But if you prevent kids from having access to honest news, because what I realize now is so much of our news and history, everything we were taught on history A level and politics O level, was passed through the filter of what society wants you to think. How do we encourage critical thinking without people lurching off into extremities? Or, in some instances, are extreme thoughts and feelings valid? That's, that's why I've always said, although I don't agree with I don't agree with Trump, I don't agree with Farage, you've got to try and understand why the fuck they're popular. If you don't, you're on a hide into nothing. Arsenal, it's to creep step to draconian restrictions on the net. Goldie, there is so much bullying and trolling online, which is why the Australian government is bringing in controls. Did I see a post, says Carol Beach, that said posts about defectors from the Labour Party were blocked due to this legislation? Yeah, you see, it's tricky, isn't it? It can get tricky very, very, very quickly. Fascists buy up land for white-only communities in Wales. I don't know what, this just struck me off the back of what we were just talking about there. I was just like, oh my God, does Wales know about this? This is a far-right group. A far-right group has raised £162,000 to create racially exclusive settlements as its leader seeks to create enclaves across Britain. This is like The Walking Dead, but like the Walking Whites. So yeah, this guy, Mark Collett, he runs a group called Patriotic Alternative. Here he is, hammering in a stake. He's building a village for the followers of the Woodlander Initiative, a land buying scheme that he leads with the aim of creating enclaves for white people. Fucking hell. He runs a tattoo parlor in Warminster. I know Warminster. Hopes the enclave can serve as a springboard for other bases throughout Britain, emulating white separatist communities in Orania on the Orange River in the Northern Cape province of South Africa, camps in the Ozarks of Arkansas, and the Free Sweden movement communities in Algeciras. If you go back to that book I mentioned earlier, the Goliath, whatever it is, the book about the end of civilization, I think we all need to recapture the ability to sustain ourselves, because we're going to have to be dealing with these fuckers. Now, look, I'll tell you what, I don't have a problem with white settlements. If they, like they always ask foreigners and migrants to do, just stay there. Just stay, create a settlement and a commune, just stay there. Coral Roberts, hi Coral, hope you're well. The war on brown pest. It's just shocking, isn't it? Okay, in more troubling news than that, because really, how troubling? Well, no, that is troubling. This isn't more troubling, but jellyfish. Who's been stung by a jellyfish? The article about Wales is in the Times. It's titled "Fascists Buy Up Land for White-Only Communities in Wales." Unusually high number of jellyfish arrive in UK seas. I was joking on the coffee moaning on the Instagram live when I suggested, could this be connected with the interstellar object that's hurtling towards us? But no, it's just warm sea surface temperatures have, because of global temperatures, have created favorable conditions for jellyfish. Jellyfish blooms arrive for their yearly reproduction cycle by following the current of warm water to the coast. And so you get what's called a population bloom. When you look at a jellyfish, you think the aliens are already here, don't you? That's what I think. So anyway, I thought we'd walk through some of the most common versions of or types of jellyfish you could come across. So here you go. Here's a user's guide to paddling. So what have we got? We've got, that's the headline. We've got the moon jellyfish. They're common and they're off the UK coastline. They do look like aliens, don't they? They just look like aliens. Lion's mane jellyfish. Its sting can cause serious discomfort. Oh, So keep your eyes peeled for the barrel jellyfish. I think this is the one that me and Nadia saw whilst away on holiday and thought it looked like a penis. The sting of a barrel jellyfish is typically mild and does not cause real harm. I think they're beautiful. The mauve stinger of a mauve stinger packs a punch with its 3-meter-long tentacles full of stinging cells. Looks a bit like a Portuguese man of war. The compass jellyfish. This is a common sight off the UK coastline, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And the crystal jellyfish, often used in scientific experiments. It emits light. And the blue jellyfish develops its blue-purple bell end once mature. Oh, isn't that lovely? They're beautiful, but fucking hell, they're scary. I love seeing people go into the sea and then they fucking leg it. The 10 most annoying things British tourists do on holiday, according to locals. Can you all start guessing what they would be? What are the 10 most annoying things? Bearing in mind, this isn't to you as a British tourist, but to other people. What are the worst things that British tourists do on holiday? This is a sort of fun piece in the Telegraph. There are huge jellyfish on the beach just now where I live, says something sweet, something savory. Get out with your camera. Someone needs to develop a jellyfish app where you photograph it and it tells you. Pretty quite limited. Drinking and being rowdy. Drinking and being rowdy, says Sadie C. Being British, says Dottie Woozle. Yeah. I think sometimes when they say British culture is being eroded, maybe just go abroad, look at Brits abroad. There's your British culture. Speaking slowly with a foreign accent, Dawn Decker. I love that. Shout drunk. Yes, drunken shouting, Nora Dore. Totally agree. Emily, getting burnt. Minky Boo, football chanting. Victoria Moore, opening our mouths. Yes, slagging off the food, Amy Fenton. That's so good. Sunbed hogging, Remade W. Sadie C, the big sunburnt bellies. Oh, keep them coming in. Yes, I love this. Well, let me tell you what they are, the top 10. Getting naked and randy. Nothing makes the Brits get a bit saucy than a bit of sand between their toes and in their scrotum and a bit of saucy sex. So getting naked and getting randy, especially on beaches at night. Being the worst type of drunk. Notorious drinking habits. Boisterous, vulgar. They bother women in really unpleasant ways. Hogging the golf course. Can I just say, I'm sorry, apologies to anyone who's into golf, likes golf, has a partner that's dedicated to it. I am so relieved that golf doesn't feature in my life. Hogging the golf course, that's one else. Rushing the sights and forgetting the rest, i.e. squeezing in Venice in a day. Just seeing everything, ticking it off, photographing a selfie and moving on. Not feeling it, not living it, not loving it. This is a good one. It's kind of talking loudly, says Ross Ouch. Complaining it's not like home. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Embarrassing ourselves on beer bikes, ignoring the local language. Maybe we were all shown British privilege there because none of us even said that, did we? Staying in rental apartments. Apparently it amplifies tourism issues. Nad? Just one sec, someone at the door. Oh. Thank you. Sorry, guys. I don't know where Nads is. And driving too slowly. I don't think that's a bad one, because if we were to drive as fast as some of you nutcases in Europe, we would just have accidents everywhere. New craze is Japanese walking as we get to the end. How the latest fitness trend shapes up. I thought, wow, this is going to be quite complex, but then they have a graphic. Japanese walking. You walk for 3 minutes high intensity and then 3 minutes low intensity and repeat for at least 30 minutes. Apparently it helps older Japanese people. It's a bit like fartlek running. What else have we got here? How an ex-ballerina finally tamed rock's wildest philanderer. At 82, Mick Jagger has never been happier with girlfriend Mel, 38, and they're even talking of having another baby, if fate allows, and if he can get it up. We're all thinking it. We're all thinking it. I mean, he's quite pecker, isn't he? He's quite sort of busy. He's quite sort of, yeah. I mean, it's terrible, isn't it, that we look at an old man with a young woman, especially an old man who's very successful. And the first question we think, and I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying they're not happy and they don't love each other for who they are, but you can't help but just wonder, what's the rationale here? Didn't Mick Jagger visit the island? Well, be interesting to know, wouldn't it? But there you are. Baby's at 82. God almighty. Oh, here's another image of him. Incredibly svelte. I think he's got those sort of shoes that help you walk or give you a bit more height. Is he quite short? If they're happy, let them be. Me too. I totally agree. In other news, Prince Andrew, royal oafishness, sex-obsessed, vulgar, vile bedroom habits, and a Meghan bullying bombshell, all exposed in devastating book royals tried to ban. And this photo just made me so pleased I wasn't there. Oh, apparently there's one story in the book where he was in Thailand and 40 women across his time visited his room. It's not looking good for old Prince Andrew. In more news, Brits shouldn't be signed off work for anxiety and depression, says former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. People should just get more depressed and more anxious about life. That's the answer. Maybe ask ourselves why more and more people are getting anxious and depressed, because the system doesn't work for them. This is an awful story. OAP John Rubin, 76, charged with child cruelty offences after summer camp poisoning. Pictured. This guy, who's a youth worker, ran a camp for kids, and then all the kids fell ill. They haven't died, but some of them were rushed to hospital. It's just terrible, isn't it? You send your kids off, and I was worried that maybe he'd read the sort of or seen the mushroom beef Wellington story. I took my kinky merch to Swingathon. Now I've launched campaign to tackle key issue. And the question I want to ask you all is, obviously, Daily Star, what is the key issue that this man has taken his kinky merch? What has he managed to tackle with his new kinky merch? Can you think? Knee pads. Yep, he's created knee pads so that you can, so it transforms the experience of doggy. And finally, woman 21 blames old Crocs after water park fall left her battered and bruised. This poor woman, yeah, I have to testify to this. Watch it with your old Crocs. I've pivoted back to my old Crocs because Nadia in the garden a couple of weeks ago sprayed me when I was wearing my Crocs with a fur lining. And then my Crocs with a fur lining then began to stink because of the squelch of the garden and everything else. Then I was on the tube and then I could smell this awful. Basically, my Crocs became the most smelliest thing. So do not get Crocs with a fur lining wet. And old Crocs do get slippy. And finally, don't forget, it's the Curly Cooks in 3 minutes. It's going to be a premiere. So you're going to be able to chat in the live chat room whilst it's broadcasting, but it's not live. Some photos to tickle our fancies. That's a duck warden escorting ducks in North Yorkshire. Oh my God, that's so wholesome. Floods in New York pouring through the doors. Imagine that. He's sitting there thinking, please don't open those doors. This is a volcano in Indonesia. Jesus Christ. This is, I've completely forgotten where this is, but that's incredibly arresting and brilliant. That isn't a stick. That is the biggest stick insect found in Australia. And finally, a guy jumps off a diving board in China. All his mates are shouting, there's no water down there. And so he hurt his head. Anyway, guys, thank you ever so much for joining us. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for making it fun. I hope there was stuff in there to titivate and titillate. You don't need to go online and look at the news now. That's your lot. Stay tuned. In 2 minutes, the premiere clock will start ticking down. Get yourself a cup of tea. Get yourself a cup of coffee or a bite to eat. You've got 2 fabulously different cakes coming your way. Yummity, yummity, yum. Anyway, guys, thanks so much. See you later.